My name is Stephen Scriver. I'm a historian of Wolseley, and I'm going to give you a few details about our very impressive town hall. The town hall is probably more impressive than a person would want think to find in a town of fewer than 1,000 people, but it just goes to the foresight and the optimism of the people who built it. Now, they started building it in 1905. Went on through 1906. There were some delays. They had to bring in a special foreman to get the guys working. It opened in 1907. The grand total of $25,000 was spent on it, and in that day it was a bit of a scandal because that was an awful large amount of money. The architect was paid the princely sum of $400, and so that it was the day. Now, it opened in 1907. It's just been the home of many events in town. I've lived here most of my life. We had variety shows and music festivals, and it was quite the meeting place. I know that Johnny Cash played here. He was actually sort of a backup in a band that was going around Saskatchewan. That was in his tougher days, and Pauline Johnson read her poetry here. So you know, we've had our apexes of entertainment here. I think an interesting thing is that it's built mostly of local brick. And if you go halfway up the building, it's a little more evident on the east side. You'll see the color changes a bit. What happened was our local clay ran out. And they had to bring in, now Banbury's, Beaver Lumber, which started here of course, the Banbury's brought in 1 million bricks from Portage la Prairie on a train, and they sat at the and so many of the houses in town are built with that brick. Anyway, but they finished off the building, and they had a grand opening. Do you want to go inside? The old field marshal, Wolseley, Lord Wolseley, who's actually the first man of humble birth to be the commander-in-chief of the British Army. He sort of brought the British Army into modern times, because after he left in 1900, many of the positions in the Army were given on merit and not on birth. He was an interesting person. I read his biography, and I think the tenet of his life was that he would make the world British if it killed every one of them. Anyway, he was a man who was in many close confrontations with the enemy. However, many of them were wielding spears. So, but he did rise and become a lord, and was a man of very humble birth. Now, the hall itself, if you talk about optimism and foresight, in 1993, there was a debate in town as to whether this building should be renovated or plowed under. Luckily, we have people in town who had that foresight and said, no, we've got to save this. This is too precious. So, you know, as a child, actually, the floor used to slope, like a lot of theaters at the time. And the stage is pretty much the same. Now it is, again, the site of weddings, of dances, of celebrations, cabarets, and drama performances. But yeah, so the original building cost $25,000. The renovation cost many tens of times more than that. And yet that's just another sign of the times. Being an old Wolseleyite, I never knew this building as an opera hall, although that is on the sign out on the highway. It is actually, the fact that it's named Opera Hall has brought people in to look at it. However, in the first place, it was a town hall, and it was a fire hall. And you notice the tower was actually used to drain the hoses after they'd been used. So the horses, when the bell would ring, the fire bell would ring, the horses would be working somewhere, because they didn't keep horses for the... And they said there were some hilarious situations where the horses would be in the middle of a job, and they'd hear the bell, and they'd run with a plow behind them to the town hall, to the fire hall. Anyway, yeah. So, but it's many years since it was used as a fire hall, and now this back part is all used. It's just part of the entertainment purpose of the hall.